Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Vanessa, also known as Homegirl Doctora. I was born and raised in LA, and this is my story.
Throughout the hard times, we're still making changes. Find the ways to help each other, many similar faces. There's a way.
So, growing up, I feel like I grew up in a cross between the San Fernando Valley and East LA. Most of my family is from East LA, and the Valley was mostly what I feel was like work and school for all of us. And I grew up pretty much first off as the ESL student. So English was my second language, and I spoke predominantly Spanish at school for kindergarten and first grade. And then I was moved to English classes. I grew up in a multi-family home. So what that means is like I grew up with my cousin, my aunt, my grandma, my brother, and my parents. I've been fortunate that I grew up with both my parents. Both my parents are still together. They're going on 47 years married. Um, but with that is a lot of, ups and downs. And I did grow up just kind of, I think, because of the socioeconomic status of our family, just working, like a lot of arguing, money issues here and there. So I grew up seeing a lot of that. Also, I grew up, me and my brother are 9 years apart. So my brother was a lot older than me. And my brother went through a lot just coming out at a young age that he was gay. And so I saw a lot of the hatred, a lot of the division, a lot of just the lack of acceptance and tolerance, I think, for humanity and humility. I also grew up in a very gang affiliated area. A lot of my cousins, family members were gang related. So I grew up just seeing a lot of different things in the community and society. I was very aware as a kid and very analytical. And so I think that helped me, but it also, I think, is something that I carried with me as a student. I saw a lot of things go down in school as well. So I remember as early as the fourth grade, I went to a Catholic school, and they benched me for speaking Spanish to one of the girls that came. She had just gotten here from El Salvador, and I wanted to be her friend. So I was talking to her in a way she could understand. And I remember that was a problem, and I was bullied a lot as a fourth grader going to a new school. All those kids had been together. So I was bullied a lot for just having hairy legs, like things that like kids bully you for, I ended up just kind of being disruptive, I guess, in school. I was in the fifth grade. I sat in the bad row because I was talkative. So, looking back now that I'm older, I see how all those different things played a role in developing the imposter syndrome. A lot of people like to talk about the imposter syndrome like it's all intrinsic, it's all on you, right? But I see it more as it's a societally ingrained thought process that becomes part of you because of what others have done. So imposter syndrome is basically this belief that like you're not good enough, or that you can't do something that somebody else does, right? It's that thought in your mind, or that little voice in your mind that says, I can't do it. I will never be like that person, right? So it's just that little voice in your head that's just always telling you that you might not be able to do something like someone else. Yeah.
One question. How did you, were your parents accepting of your brother coming out? And how did that affect you personally?
They weren't. I think my mom was a little bit more accepting than my dad. But they weren't really that accepting. I think also socially at that time, it was like 1998, there's just a lot of things like socially, like we're just entire families, communities were not accepting. Also, my brother looked like he was straight up like hanging with gay cholos, right? So bald heads, long socks, like, and they were all gay, And I will say that did have an impact on me because I saw how unkind people were. I had known that friends of mine also that were kind of like coming out as well, they would get jumped. And so there would be times at night where I would hear a helicopter or I would hear police sirens and just think like, oh, like that's gonna be my brother. Like they're gonna bring my brother home. Like something bad happened to him, you know? And there were times where I don't know if he was fighting or I don't know if he was jumped. Like my brother wouldn't really tell me much, but like where you could tell that he had maybe been in a fight. And so I would always worry. I would always worry that one, he was being jumped or somebody was out to get him. And then also when he got home that he would get in trouble for being in a fight or for being gay, you know? So I think I was always just kind of on the outlook, like just trying to make sure like everyone was okay. And also just trying to be, I guess, a good kid, like not bother anyone, not ask of anything, because I didn't want to be a burden to anyone. I think there was already enough going on at home. So I just would be silent. Like I think when I would see like a lot of the yelling or a lot of the just fighting, especially between my brother and my dad, I would just kind of keep to myself, like go on the side or go to my room, put on like my CD player, and just kind of listen to music, or just kind of keep to myself so that I wouldn't have to talk.
When did things start getting better for the situation with your brother and your parents?
That's a good question. I feel like it was probably after my brother left. My brother was in jail for a while, for like a couple months. And I think after that, he came out and he left. And I think it wasn't until he returned back from like going up north, he came back down. It might have been like when I was getting ready to finish college.
This is recent.
No.
No?
No. My bachelor's. So that was like maybe 2010, 2011. I feel like that's when we all started kind of having a different flow. Like all of us cohesively. You know, middle school, junior high, I faced a lot of, I think, learning difficulties. I didn't learn how to read or do math until I was in the 4th grade when I got to that Catholic school. And so I was just always behind. Like I was convinced that I wasn't a good student, that I didn't know how to learn. I went to high school, another Catholic school, and that's when I became like a whole new person. I think like I turned 15 in high school and I had my quinceañera, so had like my cousins like teach me how to do makeup, and all my cousins like they all wore lip liner, eyeliner, was, you know, basic, like that's what we look like. That's how they dressed me like for my quinceañera, and after that like that's kind of just how I looked. Like I was the only girl at my high school that wore lip liner like that, except this one other girl. She wore lip liner too. And we were just kind of like, that was our thing. Like if anybody else did it, people would come and tell us like, oh, they're copying your style. And to me, I was always very surprised at school because I was like, have y'all been to East LA? Like everybody looks like this there. Like nobody's copying me. Like I'm not unique. Like there's a whole community of us, you know, but the school is pretty mixed. And even like now looking back on that, I realized like, I think I faced a lot of injustice early on, and I saw injustice happening to, especially I would say Black and brown kids, because we weren't the majority at our schools. And I always really was kind of jealous of my friends that went to the local high schools, because like I remember like San Fernando High, which was our local like big school, was 98% Chicano students. So I'm like, oh, everybody looks like each other there, right? Like, so I feel like because we were for sure like the minority in the school, like I could see how certain people were treated versus others. And so I think like for me, that's kind of what led a lot to my activism from a very young age, or where I started speaking up, is because I started seeing those injustices early on, like me getting benched early on, right? Me being in the bad row. Like when I look back at that bad row, I'm like, oh, we all kind of look the same, you know?
So you got benched because you started talking in Spanish to your friend, to the girl that you wanted to become friends with.
Yeah.
I don't think we finished that part of the story.
Yeah. Also, I got benched for trying to talk to a girl who was new, because we were talking Spanish and we were told it wasn't allowed because the other students didn't understand what we were saying.
What school was this? Where was it? What city?
It was in Reseda in the San Fernando Valley. Yeah. So, yeah, that happened, and then the very next year was the year that I had a nun as a teacher, and she had a bad row. So there was certain students that were in the bad row. And yeah, from then on, I got in a lot of trouble. Like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I did get into a lot of trouble. I was suspended once for cheating on a test. I got caught cheating. You know, it was just like, I mean, I look back, I'm like, oh, they're little things, you know, but they made me like a bad kid, like in school.
Tell us about Catholic school and what made your parents put you there.
Yeah, so my parents put me there because they experienced a lot of just different things with my brother. I think I know my brother, when he went to middle school, someone took out a knife on him. They had threatened him a few times. So I think my parents wanted to avoid that. I think they also kind of saw maybe that I would be influenced if I went to a public school. So they were trying to shield me from that, I think. And also they wanted me to do my first communion, do my confirmation, go to church, which I did everything my parents wanted. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like I've lived the life of wanting to give my parents everything that they wanted. I was an altar server, 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
What does that mean?
I basically helped the priests at church. So the 3 people that usually the priest walks in with to help him do the mass. So like to get like the holy water, take it up to him, to lead people to the lines, like to get communion, like all the things, like his helpers basically. So I did that. I even volunteered to do like funerals and weddings. Like I was really into it. Like I liked being an altar server, mostly because I like to see the priest up there like talking. And so in the 7th grade, I had said that I wanted to be a priest, because I wanted to talk to the people and I wanted to inspire them and like give messages. And then they told me that I couldn't because I was a woman. And that was, I think, one of the first times where I was like, but why? Like, what do you mean? And they were just like, no, you can't. You're a woman. Like, it doesn't happen like that. And I'm like, so how do we change that? And they were like, it doesn't change. This is like law, you know? And that was like my first upset with the church. Like, at that point, I was like, man, I don't like this place anymore. Like, I want to turn it over. Like, how do I fix it? You know? And I just like, I think when things like that would happen and I didn't get good responses as to why, those things would irk me. Like, why are you treating someone like that? Because we can. Because we want to. Like, no, that's not good enough for me. Like, why can't I be that? Oh, because it's law. But where is the foundation of that law? How do we overturn that law? How do we change it, right? And so, like, that was, I think, for me, going into high school, like, I was already upset with the church. I was kind of like, well, I can't be what I want to be, you know, because of my gender. Like, I can't even change that, you know, like, I can't, like, and I shouldn't have to do this. So you know, from there, I decided I wanted to do my confirmation still, mostly because I wanted to stay in touch with my friends from junior high. And so confirmation classes were back at my middle school, and that was my way of keeping in touch with them. And so I chose to do my confirmation. I had like my quinceañera in the church. And so I won't say I was very religious or believed in everything, but I did have faith, and I did like the angels. Like that was something that I was always really into. I think it gave me, I don't know, just a knowing that like someone out there is watching over us and things are going to be okay, you know. And I think that optimism like has always stayed with me, even though I haven't really stayed believing in all of the things of the church. And so, yeah, like I think going into high school, I was also a Kairos leader, which like I led or like helped lead a retreat. So like shared a story at like this, I don't even know what Kairos is anymore, but I just remember it was like a girls' retreat. They took all the girls to this retreat, and it was like impactful. And I remember like we just had like a lot of moments where it was like based in spirituality, mostly religion and Catholicism, you know, but trying to help us like guide our way through what would be like now our adulthood. And right after like Kairos, like I remember we came back, and I started facing issues at school because my senior year, I was actually dating someone who went to that school for freshman year, but had moved to San Fernando. So at that time, like he came back, like bald head, long socks, and he would come like pick me up after school, like wait outside the gate for me to come out. And I don't know, I guess there was an interaction between him and the dean of students. And the dean of students basically said like I wasn't allowed to take him to prom, that he didn't want like trash from the streets at prom. And I got really angry, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, why are you talking about him like this? Like, he hasn't done anything to you. And again, it was just like one of those things where it was like injustice, right? But like, I didn't have the words. I was just angry. Like, I would just get mad. And I remember telling my boyfriend at the time, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to tell my mom, and I'm going to have her come and like talk to them, because at least if there was one thing I knew, that like in order to go to that school, you had to pay to go there. And even though I was on scholarship, there was still money going to that school for me to go there, you know? And so I wanted, if I was going to be paying to be there, like I wanted my demands to be met, right? And so I remember coming home and like telling my mom, like, you need to go talk to him. Like, they're talking about my boyfriend like this. Like, they don't even know him. Like, they're just assuming. And like, he went to school here, like freshman year, like, you know. And my mom was like, okay, yeah, like I'll go talk to them. I'm like, they can't do this to me. Like, you know, so I was just like really upset. And I remember like my ex, I ended up going to apologize to Dean of Students just because he wanted to like go to prom with me. And I remember being so angry because I was like, it wasn't you to apologize. Like, he literally was calling you these names. Like, he had no reason to not let you come. Like, my mom was going to take care of it. And he was like, no, like, I wanted to take care of it. And I did it. And I was like, yeah, but like, you just let him have his way, you know? And I remember even in that whole interaction thinking like after everything happened, I was like, oh, do I just get mad over things? Like, maybe I wasn't right. Like, maybe he was right, you know, because he went to go apologize. I was like, maybe, you know, he was more right than I was. And the moment I knew that, like, I was meant to be an activist, I think, was at graduation. It was in the church. And I remember we had to go shake everybody's hands. And the dean of students was one of the people whose hands I had to shake. And he was like, I hope that you never come back here to sue us. And when he said that, I was like, this was discrimination. Like, this was straight up discrimination. And he knew it, you know? And I'm like, but your hands are tied. You're like a 17-year-old high school student. Who do you go to? Like, there was no mecha at my Catholic school. There was no groups, you know? There was no one that would be someone to advocate for something like that, you know? And just knowing that, I was like, you know what, like, if I go to college, like, I'm gonna go to like study Chicano studies. Like, that was my thing. I was like, I'm gonna go to college and be a Chicano studies major because, like, I don't know, this is gonna teach me about my community, about my people, and I'll be able to stand up for these certain things, you know? And I think that was really, for me, just a boiling point. Like, I was an angry teenager, you know? Like, I was angry at society, you know? I had seen so many things. I was followed in stores, like, just for the way I looked. Family members were being incarcerated. My friends were being jumped. I had been jumped, you know? So I was like, there's just so much injustice. Everybody's mad at each other. And that was my thing. Like, I'm like, people in our community, like, we're mad at each other. And, like, we're not even the problem. It's a system. Like, they're all pitting us against each other. And we're taking it out on each other. Like, and it just made me angry. And I just wanted to fix it. Like, I just wanted to fix the societal issue, you know? And so that was when, you know, like, I think for me, everything kind of took off from there. Like, going to college, being a Chicano studies major, being in Mecha. I joined, like, 7 groups on campus. Because
what is Mecha?
Mecha is Movimiento Estudiantil Chicano de Aztlán, and what it is a politically active student organization. So they do a lot of organizing, a lot of demonstrating, calling out in a very political way, in a very, like, just straight up protesting any issues of injustice. And at that time, when I was in college, a lot of the issues that were coming up were due to, like, budget cuts that were happening in the system that were inadvertently hurting mostly Black and brown students who were going to college. So, yeah, I joined a lot of different groups, but also I was, like, the first one in my family to navigate anything. Like, I needed to learn the system straight up. Like, so being in all these different groups, meeting my peers who were maybe, like, a year or 2 older than me, who had already been in college, like, going to them to ask them for questions was easier than going to an office sometimes. Like, nobody in those offices looked like me, and some of them didn't even think I was a student there. Like, I got asked multiple times if I needed to be escorted off campus. Like, I showed up to campus wearing, like, blue sweatpants, a white t-shirt, some blue and white Cortez, and a blue and white bandana in my hair. Like, I looked like I did not belong at that time, you know? And so I think for me, it was like, I need to find people, like, to understand how to work the system, to navigate it. And literally, Chicano studies was like that home base. Like, my profs were tight, like, they helped me, you know? And so I think that's when I finally saw myself as, like, I'm smart. Like, I started my first year as a undergrad at Cal State Northridge, I put, like, a 3.85 GPA. That was the first time in my life I had that GPA. And I was like, oh no, like, these people have been making me think I'm dumb. Like, I'm not dumb. It's just, I actually like what I'm learning now. Like, I'm into it. Like, I'm learning it because I want to, you know? And to me, I was just like, man, and I started thinking about it in my community, right? I'm like, man, my cousins, like, my family, like, they're hustlers. Like, if they put that with the school thing together, like, yo, it's over. Like, we're gonna run this nation, you know? Like, that's the way I started thinking about it, because I'm like, I mean, I saw how, like, business rolls, you know, on the street. Like, you put together, like, what you learn at school, and I was like, this is literally, like, if we just connect the dots, like, we won't be in these situations that we're in, you know? Like, we'll know our rights. We'll know, like, how to move things, you know? And so that was, like, for me, what became, like, my passion. Like, in school, it was like, I'm gonna learn how to navigate all this to, like, dismantle it, like, so I can teach other people how to, like, get through it, or, like, help along the way, you know? And so that's why I decided also to work in the university system for so long. Like, I wanted to support people, and I wanted to look like myself, you know, which they make it really hard. Like, you kind of have to become part of this mold in order to work your way up. And so to me, it was just like, how do you function in this system in this way when that wasn't my intended reason, right? My intended reason was to show up and help people that look like me, but if I don't look like me anymore, how are they gonna find me? You know? And so I think to me, it's always been like a constant battle, like treading a fine line of what they see as professionalism and what that actually looks like. And so to me, I kind of saw it, I was like, all right, like if I get myself to a doctorate, like that's it, I'm their equal, you know? And that's what I thought, you know, I really did believe that, like we're at the same educational level. And not only that, but I'll probably have more years of experience because I busted my ass. Like, unlike a lot of them who could go to their master's programs or their doctorates and not work and have a full-time career, like, that wasn't my life. Like, I worked full-time from the time I was 22 graduating undergrad to the time I was 29 getting my doctorate. Like, I did not have like a part-time job or not, like I had a 40-hour a week busting my ass every single day, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, sometimes even 80 hours a week when I worked exempt because I was there for the students. I busted my ass, you know, and I'm like, and to me, it's wild that I end up like in a position, you know, later on, like working with people who seriously had 5 years of experience, a bachelor's degree, making 100,000, telling me to do their work, you know? And I'm like, to me, it's like, yes, I think I did a lot for my parents because I'm like, my parents wanted us to get our education. They, you know, they really wanted this for us because they didn't have that. And they suffered a lot in their jobs without being able to move up, because they didn't have their high school diploma or because they didn't have degrees, you know, and they didn't want that for us, you know. And I think sometimes like I look at it and I'm like, they were kind of sold a lie, you know, like that, oh, send your kids to college, like they'll be fine, you know. And I think the reality is, yeah, you're fine if you become like the oppressor too, because there's a lot of people that have the same color I do that want to talk a big game in these systems. And they're the same people that look at me and are like, she's too much. She's advocating too hard. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, I think like even seeing that, right? Like they learn to play the game and they water it down and they're fine with that to get their paycheck, you know? But like, I don't know, I have consciousness. Like, I can't legit sit in a space like that and keep operating like that when I know you're purposely hurting the students, you know, like you could be doing something for them in another way and you're choosing not to because you're sitting pretty at 100,000 a year doing nothing, just recreating the wheel every single year so that you don't have work on your plate, you know. And I think to me, it's just like, it's a double-edged sword, you know, like all of what I worked for and the passion that I've had for it, I was able to put into Homegirl Doctora, you know, like I wasn't a fake or phony. Like when I was in there talking about equity, when I was in there talking about programs to bring in the ways I wanted to support formerly incarcerated people, like coming into the college system, like when nobody wanted to listen to me in the system, like I was like, all right, like I'll do it through my business. I'll do it through Homegirl Doctora, like I'll go out, like I'll speak, you know, and that's kind of what really pushed me to start my business, you know, because I started realizing like operating in this system, like it was not going to continue working, you know, like they didn't want me there. Like it was evident, you know, they were trying to push me out. Like somebody with a doctorate, 13 years of experience, I was winning state awards and they were keeping me in an entry-level position. I applied for 7 jobs at my last institution and made it to final interviews at every single one and didn't get any of them. None of those people had a doctorate degree and 13 years of experience. None of them. And I'm just like, you see it, you know? And I'm like, I'm like, you know what? It would just be better off someone you coming to tell me, you know what? We don't like you because you're a chola. You look like a homegirl. You're ghetto, whatever. Like, come and just tell me. Come and tell me so that we could have a lawsuit. Come and tell me what you really think, but they won't because they know what would come if they straight up came and told me, you know? And I'm like, I just feel like so many things in society would be fixed if we just told people straight up, like, or if somebody would have just looked out for me from the beginning and say, you know what? You're not gonna make it here. Let me write you some letters of recommendation to go somewhere else. Like, but people don't even look out like that. You know, it's like a fake environment. It's a fake system, you know? And I'm like, and it's really, to me, I'm like, it's really sad because we're the ones that also sit there and we tell our students, like, be yourself, be authentic, like, turn, like, you know, go protest, go do this, right? And it's almost like so many higher education professionals do that because they live through the students, because they can't do that. They're stuck in a place of fear. They're sitting there not being able to speak up ever, you know? And I'm like, it's really sad because as an activist, like, I see our people, I see the workers, like, if we literally united and stood together, we could overthrow the system. Like, could you imagine every employee in a higher ed institution walking out of their job? How is the college gonna run? The employees make it run. If they were literally all to walk out, how are they all gonna get fired? Like, it wouldn't happen, you know, like, but that's the thing, they keep you in such a place of fear. And like, I know that firsthand, like all of my 20s, like, I look back and I'm like, I don't even look like me. Like, who was that girl? Like, everything changed. Like, I completely molded myself to like speak their language, like operate in this way, you know? And I'm like, it's sad because you end up realizing like everybody has to lose their individualism. You know, everybody has to lose it. And now like I see it, like people are looking for it. They're trying to find themselves again because we've literally been in a system that's been washing us. It starts in education. If you don't, come on, like you're the bad kid, you're in the bad road, like you're too loud, you're too this. Like, it's a way to streamline everyone, you know, and trying to make everyone into, I feel like more assimilated. Like, let's all make sure you're all uniform, right? Like, it's all one way. So I think one of the biggest points of when I saw a lot more just kind of like discrimination towards me at work was when I brought up the Chola Conference. So the Chola Conference was a conference that a couple of homegirls and I, Nena, Bashi, Vero, Mona, like we were all like coming together. We were all part of this organization called Chola Pinup. And so before that, like they had been doing a couple other events like the Chola Bruja Conference and stuff like that. So we had been talking about like, oh, it would be really dope if we had a Chola Conference. And at that time when I brought it up, I was like, you know what, like we can make this happen in the next year. Like I worked on college campuses for so long. Like I knew how things work to like get rooms, like, you know, create space. And so I told them, I was like, you know, I think we could do this through the college I'm at. And I was like, you know, let me reach out to the faculty because honestly, if you want anything to move on a college campus, like you can't really be staff, like you have to be faculty. And I approached the faculty, a Chicano Studies faculty, and I brought it to her attention. And she was like, yeah, like I would be really interested in doing this. And I was like, okay, great. Like this is what we would need to do. And so we had set it to be April of 2020. It was gonna be in San Diego the same weekend of Chicano Park weekend. That's what we wanted, so that we could have like a one-day conference and then go to Chicano Park. And so we were getting everything up for it, and then COVID hit. So we had to cancel our in-person like activities, and we decided to have it online. And so honestly, like that conference, it really at that time like did mean a lot to like all of us. I think we wanted to finally see a place where the Chola would be celebrated, and I guess also be demystified, like decriminalized. I think the way Chola was always brought up to me, like even being a college student, right? Like I was 19 and kids on campuses were like, kids on my campus would be like, hey, Chola. And I'm like, I'm not a Chola, like, you know? And so I was like, okay, like, and so to me it would, and I thought about it too, like why was I like, oh, I'm not, like I don't, and so
what does the word chola mean to you?
So to me, before, I guess before when I had that comment, it meant like being a banger, like you were a gangbanger, like you were out repping a hood, probably banging on people, kind of just representing and taking care of your hood, honestly, because I know that's why gangs started to begin with. I know the whole history of them, but like at that time, like that's what it meant to me. But now, I think when I realized it is a certain aesthetic, right? That you have. I also think it's a demeanor and a spirit. And I think it's embodying also that outward like chingonanes, like that. I don't give a fuck. Like I'm gonna tell you how it is. It's very blunt, very straightforward, and what some people will call aggressive. But I see it as a chola is someone with that like demeanor, that spirit that puts in work for her community. And so I think also because I started, with Chola Pinup shortly after my bachelor's degree, like I was just starting my master's when I met them. And I saw how they were putting in work in the community. They had a lot of different events. And to me, I then really identified like a chola. I was like, oh, this for sure is me, right? Because before it was like the criminal version, right? Like she's just fighting people and hurting people, right? So at that time, that's when I feel like actually felt like I could say that and not feel like I was robbing it from someone, so I think, yeah, like the Chola Conference, I think Chola Pinup, like it all played a really important role in my life. I think for me too, it also had served as like a grounding space because, yeah, I'm in here in like the academy, I'm navigating this like, Monday through Friday, like job, like being a student also. And I felt like with the girls from Chola Pinup, even with the Chola Conference, like everything that was going on, especially like at work during COVID and everything that was happening to me, like I could come to them and just like tell them straight up, and like throw my tantrum and they were just fine, like they were just like, oh, and fuck this, fuck that, and you could just be yourself without someone being like, oh, she's aggressive. You know what I mean? It's like you could actually feel what you need to feel, and like in a place where people understand you, and so I feel like that was where I've always felt understood. And so to me, like I would like when we talked about it as like the Chola Conference committee, the Homegirl Association, like it was like we want to find everybody else like us, like we want to find all the other homegirls, all the other cholas that are like putting in work in all these different ways. Like, there has to be other like Dr. Cholas out there and like, with also like girls starting businesses that are cholas, and so that was really like how it started. Like we just wanted to find our friends. Like we just wanted to find the other girls like us. Yeah, like but also, over the years, like we're going into our fourth one. It's gonna be in September at ELAC. And it's become a healing space. We have a lot of medicine women, I think, that are cholas. I think in the last, 2 years, as I've gone through my own journey, like my own spiritual journey, like I've ended up realizing that a lot of times the people that have gone through the most in life really do have a certain medicine to them. Like, and it's because they've seen things that other people haven't seen, or they've experienced things that other people haven't experienced. And when they get to that point where they can be vulnerable, when they can share their heart or their medicine with others, like it's really impactful, and I think that is something that is a seed, I think, that came from the Chola Conference and how the homegirls really want to help out a lot of the other homegirls. Like, I think a lot of people are fed up trying to help all the men. You know what I mean? Like, they've been in enough situations, or, you know, and they just want to, they know what they bring now, and they want to help, like, the other homegirls. And I don't know, it's more of like, you don't want to see someone else go through that, or you don't want to see the girls hurting anymore, you know? And so, like, I think it's really become that space. And while, like, we share, we geek out on nerdy stuff, you know, research and stuff that people are coming up with, we also, I think, create, like, a certain level of sisterhood. And even if it's just for the weekend, some people come out of there, like, being friends, like, keeping in touch. I've been in a lot of sisterhoods, starting in college, where I joined a Latina-based sorority. I'm a founder for my sorority at CSUN. And being in that sisterhood, and then also being in, like, the Chola pinup sisterhood, being also with, like, my comrades, like my hermanas from, like, La Raza Unida, and having sisterhood in, like, organizing spaces like that, political spaces. There's a lot that I've learned, I think, as it relates to sisterhood. And to me, it's like one of the things that I have appreciated most, and a lot of people will be like, oh, that's a sorority, you know, is that one of the things that is unmatched from a lot of the other sisterhoods I've been in is, in my sorority, we obviously had to go through an education process altogether that was facilitated, you know, and I really do think that that makes all the difference, because back then there was also not a lot of policing of, like, this is toxic and you talking like that is toxic, and people offhand judging one another, like, just for the way they talk. Back then, it was 2009, like, you didn't know the word really toxic like that, you know, and I was this hood girl with some very sweet girls in my line that, you know, I probably was the most aggressive one, or I was the one that would just call something out right away, and probably make a lot of them uncomfortable. And we just turned 15 years in March, and that was one of my reflections, like, a couple weeks ago. It's like, I am so thankful that I had them and that they stood by me all these years. Because if we were to join now, I don't think it would be like this. Like, they would have just given up on me, or we would have given up on each other. Like, because there was a point too where one of the girls, like, she really got on my nerves, and somebody had told me back. You know what I mean? And it's like, how are you going to do that as a college student? Like, you know, people think that that would be so off, you know, especially now, you know, and I think, like, we helped each other grow. Like, we legit have been sisters for 15 years. And I have had my moments of, like, I don't want to talk to you, I'm mad at you, like, but we've always come back from it, you know? And I think, like, I don't know, like, I found my writers there, you know? And I think, like, that's so hard to find now, because so many people are caught up in just what they read online. And everybody thinks that they have a psychology degree now, and that they can identify what's toxic. And nobody cares to sit and think, like, what happened in their life, right? Like, like, there's something that contributes to that. They just piece people out. Like, nobody wants to work through anything now, you know? And I think, to me, is like, that's not how I work. That's not how I roll. Like, I don't know if, like, somebody listening is probably like, she's toxic, like, you know, but, like, to me, like, I don't give up on people. Like, I don't give up on people.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, like, that's something that I've recognized about myself. And I now know that that's something that I do. I don't give up on people. And I think that's one of the things that has made me a great educator, someone to work in education, because I've never seen a student as, like, a lost cause or someone that I couldn't help. I think that is probably, like, the number one asset of me being an educator, but also the number one downfall of me being in a relationship, right? And so that's also on me. Like, I've had that reflection, you know, so I'm not toxic, but like, you know, in that way. But like, I've had that reflection, you know, but like, but you know, like you, like, that's the thing. Like, people don't, people don't, they don't give each other a chance to hear their stories. Because if you hear someone's story, like, you would understand why they do certain things the way that they do it. You know, like, I feel like if we just had more love and compassion towards people and understood that the frame of which we operate as the one individual person is going to be so different than the frame of someone else, especially if that person has a completely different lived experience, right? And I think that that's something I've realized even just in thinking about the masculine and feminine, right? We've lived such different lives. So when you come into relationship with one another, like, you're having such a hard time because you can't see from the other lens. And it's because we don't take the time to understand one another. We get so caught up in the glitz and glamour, like, oh my God, he's so cute. Oh my God, she's cute. Oh my God, he has this, blah, 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 right? Like, you get so caught up in that it gets you so excited that you don't even try to understand, like, the person first before you're all caught up, you know? And I think, like, that's part of, like, the problem, you know? And I think, like, I don't know, I think to me, I don't believe in, like, giving up on people, especially if they're my sisters. Like, all right, like, you relapsed. How do we help you? Like, how do we support you? I'm not gonna go around and be like, oh, she's blah, 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 this, and that, and judge her. Like, everybody makes mistakes. Mm-hmm. So you're either gonna pull up and ride with that person and help them out because that's the friend you are, or you're gonna sit over there and you're gonna talk shit and walk away. That's gonna show me who you are and who the other person is, right? And I think that's kind of how I've seen sisterhood. And I think for me, I want to continue developing sisterhood, but I also know, like, for me, I don't want to say like it's surface level, but it's more like interactionary. It's not like we're living together and growing our lives together anymore, right? Because I feel like I already have my people, you know, like, I've already developed that tribe for myself. And so to me, I'm like, I want to help other people find their people, you know, like, I want to hang out with other women, right? I have, like, my Noches de Palabra, which is mostly people that were, like, from my Homita network. And so I'm developing some new things that I want to do this summer with them. And I really want to motivate them, empower them, to see themselves as valuable, but also in those interactions, maybe they find their sisters. Like, maybe they find the sisterhood they've been looking for, you know? And I think I've had so much experience in sisterhood that, like, I can help cultivate that. I can help lead that, you know, but I may not be, like, your sister forever, mm-hmm. you know? And that's also taken me understanding and growth to know is that, like, sometimes you're in someone's life for a season or a reason, right? Like, and maybe they're not going to be alongside you forever. And that's okay, you know? And I think, like, a lot of us have a hard time with that because when you expose yourself or you become vulnerable in a certain way with people, like, you never want to let them go because there go all your secrets, right? Mm. And so it can be hard, you know, but, like, I think in the cultivation of sisterhood, I think for me, it's always ongoing. And I think that's something that I've learned to be okay with. And I think that's something that, you know, moving forward, I communicate with others, right? Like, maybe we're just meant to be on these Zoom calls for like 6 months, you know? Maybe I meet you at a coffee shop once and that was our interaction. Maybe that's all we needed, right? At that moment, and being okay with that and not holding grudges.
What she was saying about that, the kids said that was inspirational because of the way you look, right? Mm-hmm. That's how they can relate to you because most of the time it's somebody, like for me when I was younger, I went to a therapy one time and it was a man in a suit and he was white and he's trying to tell me how we grew up. Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, I don't care if you went to school for it. You go to school for something for 20 years, but if you haven't lived it, how are you gonna tell me about it?
Right.
Because anybody can put something in a book and you're like, yeah, well, I read it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
you feel it? So it's like, I always wanted to do that too, so that way kids can feel more comfortable when it's talking to someone that looks like them.
Right.
Because then when I'm saying, you know what, man, one time when I was in the drive-by, they'd be like, shit, I was too. Instead of a man like, well, I read about drive-bys, you're just reading about it.
Yeah.
So I get that. That's cool. Because then you help kids to open up more, and they're gonna want to say something, and they won't feel stupid saying it to you. When they tell somebody else who doesn't look like them, they get afraid of being rejected by the person that looks like the person who rejects us.
Yeah.
So that's dope.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's one thing too that I even started self-reflecting about when I would go to high schools and help students apply for college. A lot of times, like the little homies, they would sit in that room and they wouldn't fill out their college application. And I would take my time to go talk to them. Like, why don't you want to apply? Nah, college is not for me, miss. Like, I'm not going to go. And I would have a conversation with them and get them to apply. But it's interesting because I would leave that and be like, oh, like, I'm really glad I got them to apply. But then I would leave thinking, we don't have the support programs and mechanisms to even retain that student. You know, like, and so it's always like this double-edged sword. Like, I could see the problems of the institution and I would see like trying to get people in because I'm like, okay, like if we get people in, like they can also see like whether there's something they like sometimes we write things off because we don't think we're going to be good at them, and they could actually be really good at them. Like, I really do think a lot of people would do well, you know, going through the education, right? And like learning something that they really want to learn. But then I also see the systemic issues and the barriers that keep certain people from actually achieving their desired outcome, whether that's their certificate or their degree, you know? And so I feel like I was always struggling because I was there as a staff member trying to make a difference and change things to make them better. But when you're the only one really trying to put pedal to the metal on that or push on policies or bring up new ideas, it's isolating. Like, it's also really hard. Like, you're always in this uphill battle, you know? It's just like the students protesting right now. Like, they're in this uphill battle, you know? And I think, like, that's something that, like, you can change when you come together. Like, I think any change can come when we get together, when we're in unity, when we stand together, right? And it's just really hard, I think, sometimes to make change by yourself.
That's because I think people they feel safer being safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like the more noise you make, the more they're gonna see you.
Yeah.
And it's easier to stay in the shadows.
Yeah.
And then because if it doesn't work out, then you just like put everything you believe in out there and it's gone, and now for what?
Mm-hmm.
People are afraid.
Yeah.
Because people don't know, like you said, it's like you said when you were going to school and you didn't want to learn anything because you didn't know it. But then when you started doing that thing at the college, the Chicano thing, you were like on it.
Yeah.
Because it was something you related to.
Yeah.
And like that goes back to again the people that you can relate to, you know. But a lot of times people get scared, they just do what they have to do just to get by, and then they're like, hey, I'm just chilling. You know,
Yeah.
and when something big like that, where it's gonna be big, like noticeable, people get afraid because they're like, we can't win that fight.
Yeah.
But that's good that you do that. That's cool.
Thank you. My parents are proud of me for having my doctorate, for getting through school. But I do think that those are the accomplishments that they feel are accomplishments, like the papers, the degrees, the fact that I had a career in education. I don't really think they see my business as an accomplishment. My political activism, definitely not an accomplishment to them. That's something from the time I was 18 and started at CSUN when I joined Mecha, that was the first thing they told me. If you go to jail for protesting, we're not going to go get you out. Because they wanted me to just, you know, get along and conform and be okay, you know, not push back, like, you know. So I think, like, those are things that they see as accomplishments. And I know that they're very proud that I got my doctorate. Like, even though I don't even think sometimes they know what my degree means, like, my mom tells everyone, you know, like, oh yeah, my daughter has a doctorate. Like, she has a doctorate in education. She went to USC, you know, like, And I'm just like, ugh, like, Mom, you know, like, but I know she's really proud. You know, I know that she's really proud. But yeah, I think a lot of the other things that I do, they don't really understand it. And so I just kind of don't talk about it. I recently have been taking my mom a lot more to vending opportunities that I go to, so that she can kind of see what I do. And even then there's comments sometimes like, you know, they still don't like sometimes the way that I dress, you know, and so it takes me back to being a kid, you know, like to being in high school. And the first time, you know, I was walking out like in like my Chola attire, you know, they don't like it. They don't like it. And I know where it comes from. It comes from fear. Like, you know, when you see on the news that they're incarcerating people just because of how they look, and that's how they racial profile people, they don't want you to look like that, you know? So I get it. But at the same time, you know, I'm 35 now. So it's, unfortunately, even if they don't like it or they don't like what I currently do, it's what I love to do. So I'm gonna try to live the life that I love and do the things I love, you know?
How's your relationship with your parents?
It's good. I think it's probably better if like I wasn't with them right now. I think distance does make the heart grow fonder. I think that's the saying. I had to come back to live with them after leaving San Diego. But also there was a lot going on. My mom got sick. My dad also got sick. So I've been home to like support them during that time, and to help them, I think, just any way I can. So I think now it's good, but I know there's just a generational divide. They just, they're 69. So they're just part of a different generation, a lot of just different traditions. And one thing I've come to realize is that I'm not really focused on changing their minds about anything. I just want to live whatever we all have left together, like in a beautiful way. And so even when they don't see eye to eye to something, like I won't argue about it. Like I'll just understand that we just see the world differently, you know? And so I don't try to convince. I don't try to even educate anymore, because that really does irk my dad when I try to say something smart. So I just, now it's more just about living a good life together, you know, honoring them for everything that they've done. Because at the end of the day, they have done a lot for us, gave us the best life that they could, that they knew how to give. And so I have a lot of grace and compassion towards that. And I am grateful that, you know, they did everything that they could with the circumstances they were given and the economy that they're given, the socio-political status that they endured, being immigrants in this country. You know, my parents did the best that they could. And now that I think I'm older, I just have a lot of grace and compassion for that and want to just live what we have beautifully, like however that looks.
I remember previously you had spoken about how you were looking to find more time to spend with your parents and more time to give to yourself. Have you been doing that recently, and how has that worked out for you?
Not really.
Girl.
Yeah, because I started working a 40-hour job, so yeah. But I feel like recently, we've had a lot of family parties, a lot of gatherings. I just had my birthday, so like we've had a lot of moments where we've been able to dance together, kind of just like how I remember growing up. Like my parents worked hard, but they played hard too. You know, weekends there was always barbecues at our house, always parties with DJs. So it's been nice because we've had a lot of family things that we've been able to do recently, and so that's kind of what I envision. Like, I hope that like we continue having our family gatherings. We talked about it too with like some of my cousins, and we've kind of created a schedule of like once a month we're all gonna hang out. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm also looking forward to like having times with friends. I really like to go dance and like go out. I'm pretty social, so like also making more time for that, because I have been in a period of just kind of keeping to myself and trying to figure out my next moves and like what I'm doing. So I think like, you know, there'll be a good balance of that. My mom also, you know, she likes to travel and like she wants to go out and stuff like that. So trying to also like honor her in that. So yeah, just trying to spend time in happy settings where there's like other family members too, I think is important for us. Because then you have like the different generations too, right? And so I think sometimes too, like my cousins help bridge certain things like in our communication. And so I really do think it helps them like when they hear it from someone else, you know, because I think no matter what, like to my parents and to my brother, I'm still like the kid, you know. So sometimes the things I have to say, like they're just like, oh, let her talk, you know. So I don't really, you know, sometimes I go unheard, but I think like it's all like, I don't know, I think it's part of like family dynamics sometimes that like people don't realize like we still end up kind of falling into even in our adult age, you know. And I think sometimes it's because yeah, our parents, they don't know anything other than what they've seen, you know. And I mean, my parents don't use social media, like, you know, so it's kind of difficult sometimes, I think, to like expect something that you shouldn't really be expecting.
You mentioned that your parents had gotten sick. How did that affect you in your life? Because I know like your parents mean a lot to you, right?
Yeah. That really affected me because it was from one moment to the next. Like, it was unexpected. We thought everything was fine. And it was, my dad got sick first. Well, he had to have like an emergency surgery. And then literally like a month later, my mom found out she had cancer. I was also going through a lot of the things at my job, where it was just kind of like discrimination, and at the same time I was starting to find out I was in an abusive relationship. So everything just kind of happened all at once. And to me, I just focused on being the strong person and just kind of enduring during that time. I've been really good at never showing emotion and just kind of having like a poised like presence. But I think when my mom got sick, that was like the first time I thought like, oh no, like I could actually lose her, you know? And I think, you know, hearing that she had cancer, it's like such a scary word. Like, you just never know how it's gonna go. And I think in that moment, I don't know, I think it really made me think about a lot also, like in life. At that time too, I had a therapist, which I'm really happy I did because I had someone to talk to. And if it wouldn't have been for, I think, talking through everything with the therapist, like, I wouldn't have realized like how impacted I was. Because I just could get up, go to work 40 hours a week, handle everything that was going on in my family, handle everything that was going on in my relationship, and make it without shedding a tear or showing any emotion or breaking down. Like, it was just like I was on autopilot, just making everything happen. So I think to me, like, when my mom was finally, when she told us that she was cancer free, I think like a weight had been lifted. And I had actually felt like, okay, like we're gonna be okay, like everybody's gonna be okay, you know? But it also made me see that like my mom had pretty much dedicated her whole life to work. Like she was still working. And it was the cancer that made her retire early. And I don't know, it just showed me like who we are. I think like it passes down, you know, like, and how I was becoming that person. And my mom actually had a conversation with me, and she had told me like, I hope you let yourself like realize that it's not all about working all the time. Like I hope one day, like if you want to, like you have a family and you have kids, like your life shouldn't just be all work, you know? And like I think that was the first time like me and my mom had a conversation like that. And it really did impact me, like, because I had just dedicated myself to work, to my career, to school, you know, it was all I was doing all the time. And so it really made me reflect on that, and also the relationship that I was in at the time. So I think that was a moment to like where me and my mom became a little closer.
Are you down to talk about the abusive relationship?
Yeah. All right. So yeah, like I mentioned, I was in a abusive relationship, but I don't think I realized it was abusive because it wasn't physically abusive. So that to me was something that I didn't realize was part of just kind of what I've seen and been around my whole life, and someone just kind of losing their ability to stay calm, or just kind of being outraged in certain situations, yelling, screaming, putting me down, and also just kind of doing whatever they wanted when I wasn't around, you know? So for me, that was a really interesting, I think, breaking point. I think when everything happened, I did take like maybe 2 weeks right after, which like is a very short time for me, I think, where I pointed the finger at myself and was like, what did I do? I drove him to do this to me. Like I must have been terrible in this way, right? I did a lot of just self-reflecting. Every relationship I had been in, which weren't that many before him, I literally would take 3 years doing that to myself. Like I did this wrong. Like I would self-attack. Like everything was my fault all the time. And with that one, it literally took 2 weeks of me doing that. And in the third week, I literally broke down on the floor and I started crying. And I said, oh my God, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that I did not marry him, that I did not get pregnant. Like, I'm so thankful that like he is not the one. Like and it was so interesting because I was heartbroken for what happened, but I was almost like relieved. And it was like after that breakup, that relationship, like it was like something changed in me. Like I feel like I started more so like the spiritual like journey of like trying to understand myself, of like not being so hard on myself, of seeing the world like so differently. And it was, I mean, at that point, I felt like it was all due to that relationship, like that breaking of that relationship, because I think I ended up realizing that there's nothing that anyone can do that would amount to driving someone to do what he did. And I think for me, that was kind of like the biggest message for me, is if like, it was like, how did you end up here and why? Because I feel like something that I tried to avoid my whole life. Like I had seen it all around me. Like I've seen a lot of abusive relationships all around me. And I purposely tried to avoid them. I purposely made sure I wasn't in back-to-back relationships. Like I was trying always to be very intentional about relationships, you know? And so to me, I was like, you are not to fucking engage with anyone or talk to anyone until you figure out how you ended up here. like, what made you like be in a relationship with this person to begin with? You know, how did you miss this, right? And so I think to me, that was kind of like what really helped me dive into finding myself and understanding myself more. And also recognizing at the same time how like this people pleasing in the type of environment, like job environment that I was in, kind of led to also me just looking over things, like just letting things slide or like letting things go, right? And being okay with like certain things that were happening. And so I just started seeing like my whole life just kind of unravel, like everything I had been through. Like I started like reflecting on who I was as a teenager, like, you know, who I've been, what I learned, why I was doing certain things the way I was, and recognizing that like I wasn't being 100% myself or standing up for myself the way that I stand up for people in the community or like, you know, in different settings. So it was more of like taking it back and just really trying to stand up for myself and say what I needed to say without caring anymore if somebody found me aggressive or like too blunt, you know, or too straight up, or too intimidating, you know. And I think like always, you know, like growing up, Catholic schoolgirl, like be nice, like talk to people nicely. And, you know, and I think like, yes, like I've always done that, but trying to do that too much, like really allows people to walk all over you, you know? And I think like that's when I realized like, you know, it was like around like last year too, where I realized like I do have a problem, like being aggressive again, like in these like relationships, like, and saying like, fine then, go, or like, you know, just whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, we'll discuss it. And, you know, like I, you know, doing those things. And I'm like, why? Like, if it's go, like, don't let it play out longer. Like, and so really, I don't know, just having those conversations with myself and finally being okay with like, all right, if you see me aggressive, then maybe this is not gonna work, you know? And being okay finally with, you're not meant for everyone, you know? Like there's a saying in my sorority that says like, LTA is not for everyone. And like, I remember like just thinking that to myself, like, I am not for everyone. Like, and I think the more and more that I've been out as like, on, you know, the stuff that I'm doing under Homegirl, Doctora, and like just being myself, like you find your people, you find the people that vibe with you, you know? And I'm like, that's it. Like if we ain't vibing, like it ain't happening, you know? Like we ain't gonna talk no more.
What was that you said? LTA?
Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, that's my sorority's name.
Oh.
Yeah.
How was it being in a sorority coming from the hood?
Yeah. So, I mean, people have this like running joke that sororities are gangs on campus.
You're like nothing like it now.
Yeah, it's not.
Like
I mean,
movies?
just because, no. Okay, so you're talking about white movies, like white sororities.
Because you weren't in a white sorority.
No, I was part of a Latina-based sorority. And there's a differentiator. I actually wrote my dissertation on this, and how I feel like they are always in this in-between because they're not as elite as the white fraternities and sororities, and they're not as down or grassroots as like cultural groups, right? Or like politically active groups like Mecha, right? And so I always felt like the sorority existed in this in-between. And so I was in Mecha and I was in the sorority and I was part of like other groups. But there was always this thing like Mecha doesn't work with sororities because of the hierarchical structure that they kind of have as a sorority, right? And also the division between men and women, or masculine and feminine, right? So being in the sorority, I felt like I was always in this like kind of in-between space. Even though it had like political component to it, like the girls would go to protests, we would all wear our letters, right? But like Mecha was still like, oh no, like we don't want to work with you, right? And so I think to me, I don't know, I kind of always function in this in-between. Like I didn't please anyone. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I look back on myself and I'm like, I never was really a people pleaser up until a couple years ago, you know, like, I think it happened after I got my doctorate and was trying to, like, you know, get a job, right? But, like, I feel like I've always been in this, like, in-between where I'm, like, not here nor there, like, you know, Chicana, like the dash between Mexican American, like in between every time. And I could see how Mecha needed a better structure, like to actually get things moving, like so we could get more like funding for stuff and actually help, right? And then sorority had some good structures, right? But I could also see how like it was not a good space sometimes in certain ways, right? With like the partying here and there, right? But when you look at what you see in the movies, like those are white sororities, and that's based on just like 100% like partying. Like there's no academic components sometimes to those, and that's the difference. Like we actually had to have a certain GPA, and I think for me, like what I saw as a, I guess when people were like, oh, these are campus gangs, right? Like they only called it that because you're all wearing the same color with the same letters. You have like a hand sign. Sometimes you have like a stroll, right? Like an organized dance that you all do together, right? You have a call. So like you do the call, like to call your people, right? But
What's the call?
I'm not gonna do it because it's a call and response. Yeah, no, you cannot respond.
You gotta be from the gang.
Yeah, basically, you gotta go through the education process. But like, what I will say though is that, in a sense, what did kind of remind me of the hood and being in the sorority is that like you really got each other's backs. Like you go through this educational process that makes you really care about the person with you, the people with you, and you kind of create this like ride or die with them. Like, you know, I got you. Like you go through a hard time, like I'm gonna be there for you. So I think to me like and it was kind of like there was a lot of back and forth too, because back then, like if you had a rival sorority, like you would throw blows at each other at a show, you know, like you would say some like puns or like jokes on like other organizations, right? Like there was certain like aspects, right, like that I could see was like hood familiarity, but at the end of the day, like all those kids, like they wanted like to do well in school, you know, like they were there because they were trying to do something different. They wanted to, you know, support their communities. Like that's the one thing I will say that was really different about like the multicultural, like historically multicultural organizations, sororities and fraternities on campus, is that like when we did fundraisers, when we did events, it was all going back to the community. Like we all did stuff that was like working with like a middle school nearby or kids nearby, or like lending ourselves to like, I know one sorority had like literacy efforts, you know? So there was always some type of like giving back as part of our organizations. And I feel like that was number one for us versus like a lot of the historically white organizations. It was about like just, let's collect money and we'll give them money. That's our community service, you know? But community service to us, I feel like was important. Like we wanted to show up. Like we would go read to kids. Like we would go actually do stuff like that, right? So I think like to me, that's what I liked about the sorority. It was like this group that we could bring together to like go and help in the community and support in ways that maybe we couldn't support before as a group versus as like an individual.
Is that the purpose of a sorority?
Yeah. The sorority, I think the purpose of the sorority for sure was to, at least ours, was really to empower like Rasta women in education, give them a support system, like a hub, a base, where they could support one another, but also create networks nationally. Like, so my sorority is national. It was established in New Jersey. That was the first chapter. And so it was to create those national networks too, which I think for me it did. I have tons of like line sisters and brothers like in Jersey, Miami, Florida, Miami is Florida. But like Chicago, Texas, like all these different states. And it really opened me up to also a different understanding of people. Like in the East Coast, like I met a lot of people that like their families immigrated from the Caribbean or from, Nigeria. And like it was cool like to go and like meet people from different cultures, and like the East Coast where culture is different there too, and just get to know them, become friends with them. Like I still keep in touch with a lot of them too. So I think it created like a network that I wouldn't have had I not joined.
What advice would you give to someone that is finding themselves hard to let go of certain things, whether it's relationship, whether it's betrayal from a friend, any injustice at work? How do you mentally even prepare yourself to that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think that's different for everyone. I think what I've found for myself to help me let go of things, whether it's a person or an issue, a fight, a battle, for me, I release through dancing. And I honestly just found that out like a couple of months ago. Um, I think a lot of my anger, I have been able to take it out like in protest, by being able to go out and like yell and scream, right, for a long period of my life. But I also don't think I recognized how much dancing has helped me throughout my life as well, right? And so like I even said in the sorority, we have an organized like dance, and we stroll and we salute. And I think to me, having those outlets in college, I didn't realize what an impact they made on me. Because when you have anger, or when you have like maybe so much passion too about something, like you need to let it out somehow. And not everybody lets it out the same way. And I think to me, like recognizing that like movement, like body movement and release, like is really, really important for me. And I have to do it often. And so I think to me, when I realize like I'm getting really worked up about something, or I'm having a hard time letting something go, like I'll literally go to my backyard and dance. Like I'll put in some headphones and I'll just dance. Like, and sometimes I'll stroll, like I'll do an organized dance like from my sorority, and like, cause we have like hard movements, so it's like almost like you would do like a hip hop dance where you just kind of like go out and you're like boom, and like, so sometimes I do that, which is like, if you really think about it, that's what you do when you fight. So like, even that, like the sorority helped me to stop fighting. Because I learned through the education process, like you can't just pop someone at college, like you're gonna get kicked out and that's your future, right? So when you think about even the movements like of dance, it's almost like you can step to someone, like this is a dance move, And so I noticed like if I'm able to let it out like that, like it makes me less susceptible to like go off on someone. And so I think everybody needs to figure out what they need for themselves. I think like that would be my number one suggestion, is like figure out what helps you get through something. And for some people it's meditation, for some people it's singing, for some people it's socializing and being in groups and talking to people. And for some people it's a mixture of like 3 different things, And so it's recognizing what you need and making sure that you schedule those things in for yourself, and you don't let those things like slip. Because what I've noticed too, for me, if I let something like that slip and I don't go out and dance at least like once a week, like where I have to move like that, right? I start feeling really lazy. Like I don't want to get out of bed, and I'm like, oh no, like this is because I haven't been moving, And so like just knowing what you need for your own body is so important, because if you don't know what you need, you can't be in a relationship with someone and waiting for them to figure out what you need. You know what I mean? Like you need to be able to come into something, even if it's a friendship, and being like, hey, you know what? Like I get really worked up in these settings, like FYI, like just being able to know yourself, I think is so important, because I think like that's the only way we can really take care of ourselves. And I feel like that's like the number one, especially recommendation I give to women, is like, so many of us, I think sometimes are like waiting for someone to take care of us. And like, no one is ever going to know how to take care of you if you don't know how to take care of you. And if you can't communicate that, then you should not be with someone, not yet, like rely on the homegirls, like exercise your voice with your homegirls. Like, that's what sisterhood is. That's what having homegirls is being able to be like, all right, like I can't be shy here, like I gotta say what's on my mind. I gotta say what I need. And so I think to me, like that's the advice that I would give, is like figure out what you need so you can give it to yourself. So you can be well. If you're well on your own, like you'll be well, like in other settings, like moving forward. You just gotta know you. I think that's one thing too that I've realized, is that I feel like partners, like you complement each other. And I think that while we all have masculine and feminine, I think, energies, right? And I think when we come into a place of balance, you end up recognizing that as partners, that's what it is. It's like a balance of each other. And for two people to come together and be in balance, I think they have to just learn to work with one another, right? And I think one thing that I've seen is that some more feminine, right? Like some people who identify as feminine will come and expect the masculine to show up a certain way, right? But if that feminine hasn't understood her own masculine, right, and balanced that, like, and the masculine hasn't understood his own feminine and balanced that, then there's always going to be like this sense of imbalance, right? And so I think if you learn like to work with someone, to talk through things with someone, which I think is sometimes one of the biggest issues, I think, is talking, is really getting in there and like having conversations about how both people are feeling. And
even if it's uncomfortable,
right,
afraid of it.
right, especially
that's growing, though. That's growing,
yeah,
growing.
especially because it's uncomfortable, right? And like also, you have people that don't want to get vulnerable with each other, right? Because they're scared or they're holding on to something from the past.
And they don't want to admit wrong,
Right.
Or like you said, afraid of, if I tell you everything, you're gonna run off and tell my secrets.
Yes.
Once we're done.
Yeah.
that's
So
that's like a little diary that can walk away.
Yeah. And so I think that's like, for me too, like that's something that I realized, is that like I used to be the type of person where I was like, I want an instant connection. Like I want to know, I want to like be love at first sight. I want love at first sight, Yeah, like I was like, I want love at first sight. And I think that was like my mentality for a long time, and getting out of that last relationship, I was like, oh no, I need to know somebody before I even think that I want to date them. Like I want to intentionally date people, get to know them, but know that like we're not going to date like 1 month and then that's it. Like we're going to be in a relationship. Like I think that's when I realized like, no, I really want to try to understand someone, and I want to allow myself to disclose myself in pieces, because I know that I have trust issues. I know that I'm like, oh, if I tell you all my secrets, you're going to run and like, I don't know, go, do something with my secrets. But, like, I don't know. Not that I have a lot of secrets, I feel like my life is public. Like, hello, it's on YouTube now, but like, but, I just feel like there are things, that like I would want to disclose progressively, and I think like that's the difference sometimes, is that like we don't realize, like everybody just wants to jump. Like I think so often we're just like looking for love, and like we get so caught up in like the feeling, and we don't lend ourselves to the experience of actually getting to like unwrap someone slowly, you know what I mean? And I think that would solve a lot of our problems too, and like heartbreak and recognizing who's right for us or who's not. Like earlier I talked about some people, like I think everybody has a level of medicine or some medicine that they bring to the world in a different way. And some people bring that medicine on them, right? In their body, like in their hug, in their embrace, in their conversation, you know? And so it draws certain people. And yeah. And it is meant.
We're exchanging energy.
Yeah.
With each other. Like that's where.
Yeah.
That's why like a lot of people say when they watch my stuff, like they literally tell me, like, it'll be a day if I'm working all day and I don't post nothing. Someone's like, "Yeah, you're right." I'm like, "Dude, it's one day." But to them, it's like I go to your page for this.
Yeah.
So if I don't find something, it's like if I'm having a bad day, I know I can go to your page and it'll change my whole mood. And I'm like, damn, like
yeah.
You do that through your phone.
Well, see, even when it comes down to people coming onto the show, right? And I present the idea, and right off the bat, they're like, I'm gonna have to talk. I'm gonna have to think about it because, and I'm. Off the bat, I'm like, I already know what you're gonna say. You don't want to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful way to come onto the show, not just necessarily making changes, but speak about your life story.
Yeah.
Because once we're gone, there's gonna be video of you expressing yourself on how you feel, how you feel, how you think, how you carry yourself, what you've been through, stories that stories that
that's a ghost right there.
Stories that only you can tell, and your great grandkids are gonna be able to watch this and just be like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
My grandma was badass.
Yeah. Because nobody knows your story but yourself.
Yeah.
And you get to tell your story just how it happened to you. Like someone steps on your foot, and then you're like, oh my God, that really hurt. And then I tell you, no, it didn't. How can I tell you it didn't hurt you if I didn't feel what you felt, right? So it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even when she asked me to come on the first time, I was like, what do I talk about, you know?
Yeah.
And she's like, just about you.
Yeah.
And I was afraid at first, but I opened up like big time. So.
Yeah.
And then when people were hitting me up and they were like, hey, like your story helped me and made me feel better. And I was like, oh, damn, like, you know what? Trickle didn't help people out.
I'm not gonna lie, like I think that has been one of the hardest parts of being my own brand, is that like my brand is me, and I'm like, oh, I regret that so much. Like sometimes I'm like, why didn't I come up?
Nobody can take that from
Yeah, I'm like, why didn't I come up with a different name, you know, and do something different? And I recognize that like I've had a really big problem with being seen. Like especially earlier this year, like I went through a period of like where I was like, I don't want my pictures to be up. I don't want anybody to see me. I don't know why. Like it was just like, and I had to sit and be like, why don't I want to be seen? Like, why don't I want people to see me? Like, and it's because, I don't know, I feel like my mission here is much greater than to just be a face, you know? And I think sometimes it's made me uncomfortable when people are like, oh, you're so cute, or like I get those DMs, you know, where they're like, oh, are you single, you know, and I'm like, no, this is not, like, I'm like sitting there, I'm like, this is not the purpose of my page, like, you know, and it like frustrates me, you know.
Here's my Cash App.
You should pay for that picture.
You gotta pay for this conversation.
Yeah. But like to me,
doctor.
like it's I don't know why, like I'm just like, I don't want to be diminished to that, you know, like or I don't know, like something just happens where I'm like, I don't want to be that.
Maybe you think because that you are a good-looking person that you think people are only looking at you because of that, and they're not really seeing what's really inside or what you're trying to do.
Right. Like I think that has been something that, you know, like I thought about too. Is like, I don't want to just be a cute face, you know, like.
Yeah, because I had a podcast that I was trying to do, and one of my friends was like, hey, man, I'm going to help you out. We're going to get some girls in there. And I was like, girls? And he's like, yeah, they're going to be pretty. And I'm like, for what?
Yeah.
Just so we can get the audience. And I'm like, well, that's not the way I want to get the audience.
Yeah.
I'd rather get it because I'm talking about real things.
Yes.
Instead of just some girls sitting there cute, doesn't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
But they're watching like, damn, you see your ass? Like,
yeah.
You know, it's like, did you just hear what we're talking about? Like, it's like, we're talking about something bigger than that.
Yeah.
You see, even when we started this, I had a lot of people tell me, you need to bring people that have a large following.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, but you don't understand that what I'm trying to do is bring people that have an amazing story, which everybody has an amazing story because everybody has gone through something and has battled through all kinds
They
of
could be a
stuff.
girl that has 1 million followers, but
Yeah.
she's just shaking her butt. You're not gonna
Yeah.
have her on there.
Well, not just
I mean,
that, but in all reality, the followers are gonna mean nothing to us if
It's not
they
the
don't
same.
go there and be like, hey, you guys, make sure you check out my interview that was on this platform.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, it's like everybody gets so consumed with show us people that are up here.
Yeah.
Why can't we show you people that are in the same level as us?
Yeah.
Where did it start from?
Yeah.
I
Okay,
agree.
you know?
I agree. And that's like me too. Like I worked with people who have like 400 followers. Like, you know, I had a friend reach out to me, was doing a school project. And I was like, oh, yeah, like I'll do it. You know, like I don't look for that. Like I don't look for status. I don't look for followers. Like, and I think that's what I don't like about social media sometimes is that like you only see a small part of whatever that post says. You only see a small segment of whatever is on that page. You don't get the full story. And also, one thing that I've realized too is that everybody sees things through their own lens and their own perspective. And so you could literally write one word that someone doesn't like, and that will skew the entire way that they see whatever you wrote on your page, you know? And it's like to me, I'm like, oh, I struggle a lot with that because I'm like, oh, I don't know, like I hope people see the full story, and I hope people realize that like my page is not a cute face. Like my page is for a message. Like my page, I don't care to be an influencer. I don't care to have all the likes. Like I don't care for any of that. Like I care that, I don't know, one day some random person who's looking for like support like finds my page, you know, like that's what I care about. Like the people that are meant to find me, like that's who I want to find me, you know. Like I want to continue building like my people. Like I want to continue building in unity. Like I want to meet new people, hear their stories too, you know. Like it's just, I feel like everything is an exchange. Like I don't think like anyone's any better than anyone else. Like, you know, which I've realized, you know, being in academia, like titles and accolades like really blow people's heads up, you know. And I'm like, it's not, it ain't me, you know. Like you can have all the degrees you want. Like I'm not gonna bow down to you just because of that. Like what are you doing with that? Like how are you helping people that you need to be helping? Like how are you changing like the trajectory of history, like to include people that have not been included? Like tell me what you're doing, like how you're working. Like when you tell me what your work is, like then I'll be on your side. Like then maybe like we can collaborate, you know, and talk. Like I vet everybody out. Like I'm like, I'm not gonna show up to something that I don't believe in, you know. I don't care how many followers they have. I don't care how many likes they have. I don't care if like the coolest person on like the TV is like your #1 follower. Like I could care less. Like that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here for status and fame. Like I'm here to help spread a message and help bring people together and help people see like their own resilience and the fact that they matter and that they can do something if they want to do something, you know. Like that's my message. Like I'm here to like motivate and like empower and like support in any way I can, you know. And also knowing that I have my own limitations, just like you're saying, like maybe I don't post every week, you know, because it's hard for me. Like it takes me like freaking 4 hours to do a reel, you know. I'm like, and it's just me dancing sometimes, you know. So I'm like, I'm not the best social media person. Like I'm sure if like some of my speeches were recorded, they would be really cool on Instagram, but I don't have money like that to be, you know, bringing someone to record them for me and like make them for me. And everything I do is on my own, you know. And I do it like because I want to like, you know, help support people and hopefully like have them hear some part of the message. But like I also see it as like maybe my message was just for the people there in that stadium that day or that conference center, you know. Like not, you know, like, and knowing like whoever heard it was meant to hear it today, and that's it, you know. And being okay with that, and not putting all these things on myself that I don't know how to do and I'm not good at, you know. But also recognizing like, okay, these are forward directions I want to take one day, and maybe one day when I have the income, like I can get this going, you know. But I'm not gonna push myself to like overwork myself to do all that either, you know. Because again, it's not for the status and likes. Like, I'll just keep showing up to community events and talking to people, you know, like whatever I can do.
If anybody wanted to get a hold of you to like join anything that you're doing, how can they do that?
Yeah, can visit me at www.homegirldoctora.com. You can follow me on Instagram at homegirldoctora. I do reply to DMs. And yeah, not the dating ones. You know, I'm like, don't ask me on a date in DM, please. Thank you.
It's good for my community, though.
I'm like, catch me at a community event. Go support.
Show me what you're doing for the community.
Yeah. Show me what you're doing out there. Yeah, then maybe I'll think about it.
Robin Hood.
But yeah, I'm actually gonna start having events, mostly to like go out and dance. A lot of the homegirls on my profile have been saying like, oh, we should go out dancing together. So I might actually start organizing weekend events, maybe some like festivals or cultural events, dance nights. So yeah, I have that on homegirldoctora.com/events. But yeah, like anything I do goes on there on my website. I've been better at updating it. But yeah, also like follow La Razonida Party. Most of what I do also is with La Razonida. So yeah, like that's pretty much how people can follow me. My advice to, I think, everybody that listens in or is part of the community is that we're much more powerful than we think. We live in a society that has continued to diminish, especially, I feel like, raza and our talents, our abilities, and keep us in a place of fear, unable to speak up sometimes or stand together. And I just want everybody to know that we come from a lineage of warriors, of people that have created pyramids, structures, like numbers, like have done so much. And that's all ingrained in us. And I think if we all go through a process of finding that within ourselves, we would see how amazing and resilient we are as individuals. And so I hope that everybody that's out there watching sees that in themselves or finds that and embraces it and walks forward in a way that you carry that with you, to not let yourself ever be abused or diminished or belittled in any way. And if you are experiencing those things right now, find your people, find your community, find the people that you can walk out with, the people that you can stand up with, because trust me, those people exist. You just need to reach out. And I know sometimes the hardest thing is to be that person to reach out and to ask for that help. But if you do, you will find that people will rally with you. Thank you for listening to my story. This is Making Changes.